Hey guys, this really must be serious. I mean, I'm wearing a whole shirt. It is buttoned up all the way. Look at the set. Like, this is crazy, man. This is really is deadly. This is serious. I'm joking, man. Welcome to Motivation from Saya. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoyed the intro. Comment below and tell me what you think about our new intro. Anyway, welcome to Motivation from Sa. My name is Musonko Somkizu Motivation from Sa is a segment on my YouTube channel where we go around looking for individuals that have a beautiful story to tell and we share it with you guys so that we can get motivation and inspire. I decided that I'm going to post part 1 of the interview that I had with Grizelda Grootboom now during the 16 days of activism against women and children. And the reason why I think this interview is particularly an important one for our society is for us to realize that though all the things that she speaks about happened back then, it is still a reality for a lot of young girls in the world, in South Africa, and it's something that I really think that we should echo it as much as possible. Stories as such that should not be stopped being told. What I love about this story is that it ends in a good note, in a very beautiful, sweet note. So this is part 1 of the interview I had with Grizelda Grootboom. Please enjoy.
Yeah, just a disclaimer, this episode is just going to be like a very discreet one, and if you are light-hearted, yeah, I suggest you skip. So the person that I have here today, I don't know, she's an amazing person. She had a very, very tough upbringing. At the age of 9, she was gang raped, and then at the age of 18, she found herself as a sex slave in Joburg. 8 years later, she got out of that whole industry to later live her life and tell that story. She's an author of a book which is called Exit. This one right here. Of course, I mean, if she's the author, it's her book. You know, she's now a activist against human trafficking and who supports fellow survivors who are still going under rehabilitation. She's currently working at Embrace Dignity. Embracing Dignity is a growing global movement which works to restore dignity for all humans by advocating for law reform and public education to address commercial sex, exploitation and human trafficking. And while she's doing all of that, she's shooting a documentary. So you might have seen from the behind the scenes that she's currently shooting a documentary. And while she's doing all of those things, she's still doing her grade 11. Guys, please help me welcome, like honestly, please help me welcome the amazing Grizelda Grootboom.
Wow, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time to meet up with me. Honestly, I think this is one of the most exciting interviews I've had. Honestly,
wow.
Like they always get better and better. I always think this is the best, and then the next one just gets more crazier and all that.
That's so good. That means you're going somewhere. Like
definitely. I mean, I'm sitting here with you, and I still can't believe that I'm sitting here with you. But let's go back to Woodstock, growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your story, so you will be the one who kind of drives it into a certain direction. So whatever you feel, yeah.
Okay.
And if there are a few questions that you don't want to ask, you can answer. You can just tell me that no, I don't feel like answering that one, and we'll move on. So in Woodstock, which is right here down the road.
Yes.
You're living with your grandparents.
Yeah.
Why and how?
I grew up with them because they were my grandparents. My dad, it's his family side. And it was one of those happy colored homes where it's colored people eating fish. Most of the men works at the harbor. I was probably the only kid at the house at that time. My grandparents were there, which was sort of my grandparents because it's my dad's family side. And my dad had a girlfriend, so I was actually very much of a spoiled kid. Really? Happy because I was alone, and so everybody just gave me stuff whenever it was family happy day. So it wasn't like where today houses are full of men and there's something always off. My environment was actually very nice because Granny was always in the kitchen cooking the best meals ever. The men would come from the harbor and they would bring crayfish, they would bring fish heads, all their girlfriends would come. We had like this crazy backyard that was extremely long, and people would just sit there and catch up because the men were coming from fishing, you know. So it's like this whole catch up / tavern related relative thing
that was happening.
It was your typical life that you just enjoy as a kid, and you just sit on everybody's lap and you always get a 5 rand or 1 rand. And that was the best part whenever the house was full of men that was coming from fishing. I had a cat, which was Ginger. I used to have, my outings was going with my grandfather, escorting him to go and play gamble with the horses game every Saturday.
Oh, okay.
And my outing was that, and that would benefit me a toffee apple and Vienna's.
Oh yeah,
and fish and chips.
No, definitely.
Because in the house it was never
It was
a priority
never
of groceries.
So wait, so now, where's your mother while all of this is happening?
My mom was in her own life, like as in, you know, she was also at the harbor, of course, because that's how she met my dad. So her social life was that. And, you know, she and my dad just had a one moment. Wow, I sort of think, because, you know, our parents don't share much of their love stories. But I think they sort of had this crush on each other. And my dad was a smoother. He was fine. Like, he was so fine. I mean, in my book, I share the girls fighting over him. Like, my dad was so it.
Because I mean, you even speak about the fact that your the girlfriend even knew that there was your mother, and your mother knew that there was the girlfriend, which is like the whole thing. That
like, I literally got to witness all the time relationship soapies through my moms and my friends and my dad, and especially my dad. Like, he would be the one that causes these girls to come to the house and have arguments and help each other. And then he was still, what I probably remember and why I remember it, because after all of that, he will usually come and pick me up, and they will be like, but you're still my first wife. So as much as I've seen arguments in the house, he just picked me up. So, you know, you watch men argue with their partners and just storm out. No, my dad would just pick me up, and even in my book, you'd know his favorite place to carry me was on his shoulders, which always made me feel like I'm a queen, even today. So when he has an argument, he'll catch me like, you still my wife, and he'll put me on his shoulders, go to the shop and buy me something.
Because even the way that I structured my question, especially about your childhood, is that I think you barely had a childhood. Sure. You quickly had to be an adult in a very short space of time. So from that happy life, which I think definitely your book does touch on it, but it doesn't touch on it the way you are saying it now, where that you guys had a backyard and everyone was having fun. From that happy life to now living under the bridge, under the bridge. What was the transition and what happened?
So the city was sort of getting to a space and place where a lot of apartheid government districts was sort of belonged to the apartheid government parties, and you know, our district, as the District 6 itself, the Hoodstock and the CBD Cape Town, was one of those places that was going to be, families are going to get kicked out because it's going to be used for new developments, it's going to be used for everything. And my area, my community, my street was targeted because as you look at the Hoodstock District 6 right now, which buildings or sort of took in that whole space, because my house was a 2-bedroom, a long passage, a kitchen, and another couple of rooms at the back. And it was one of those houses that you literally walk. It's like you walk in a corridor. So it was a spacious, beautiful family home. And all our homes was never built as in far apart. It was like the wall divides the next house.
The next house.
So it was really a community of family and long generation. And then, you know, when the time came, my dad was going through the phases because my grandfather passed away in that same year. Then my grandmother, because of the trauma, and that same year is the same year where procedures were taking place in communities, and my dad were not attending those meetings. And due to not attending those meetings, we couldn't get this small little flat from that. So we got kicked out of the house. And he just, you know, he kept me very emotionally in touch with him because he was very close, but always he would leave me at a shelter, which is also very close by to the same streets, and leave me there and go and look for my niece. So, and that transaction was a little bit confusing, but my dad always was with me. And then sometimes he'd leave me, and his promises was always like he's going to come back. And everything happened so quickly that I got used to the pain. So moving from there to the shelter, from the shelter to the harbor, waiting at the harbor, then got an opportunity to meet my brother's uncle, so he can direct me to my mom in Kailicha.
Because I think, especially, like even in your book, you touch about how all these, I'll say, sad events started happening like in succession.
In session of session.
The passing of the grandparents, the throwing away of the cats, and then your father, who clearly, honestly, I had a very bad picture of him in my head, after reading your book. So,
everybody does, actually.
So now you're just painting him as this person, and you still treasure him in a way.
I think because I've traveled with them. At that time, a father leaving their child on a harbor for hours and not coming back, it's like the wrong thing to do. And yes, when he had a girlfriend, he sort of used to kick me out of the house. And yes, I know that part. And I mean, that was the Guguletu and Beverly and the kids in Guguletu. And when he had to meet me, he had to wait for her to leave the house so we can hang out. And when she comes back, he kicks me out. So yes, they were bad. But there were moments in that badness when my dad made me feel I was still his daughter. And I knew the situation. It was like, you see your whole family getting kicked out of the street. So I knew in my head I cannot blame him, I cannot blame any of them, and whatever is happening right now, you just have to survive.
Even not for trying to make sure, because how old were you?
I was 8,
and now you're thinking as an adult, like you're reasoning.
Yes.
I think anyone or any kid at 8 years old know that the father needs to provide regardless of anything. So to get what I'm saying, for me, like, the whole thing, the blame just goes on him. Like,
no, I saw his emotions when my grandparents passed, so I knew he was also going through an ordeal. And then we eventually lost the home. I did not expect him to be Superman because he drank every day since Granny passed on. And then he just drank, and it was just him saying it's my fault because he never had a stable job. So I just knew he was taking the blame and feeling bad, and he tried at all means to get rid of me all the time, but I would always find the way, because I felt sorry for it. It's like you see your whole family scattered in front of you, and you as a kid, you've seen them in the most happiest, and it's not their fault. And that's my take on loving my dad at that time.
Because I mean, the same question with your dad will apply to your uncle, would apply to your
my mom,
and to your mom.
Right.
But you the first time you were gang raped was when you were 9 in Kailicha. How do you end up in Kailicha from Woodstock?
Well, like I said, my dad used to leave me at shelters, come and check up on me, and then there's a time where he left me at the harbor. And at the harbor is where my mom used to work, and then she met a guy there, and then they got married. So everybody did know her already. And then eventually, my dad's brother, he's sort of, like LGBT gay guy, so he was very active. And he picked up on me, and he's like, oh, okay, you still around on the streets too? Do you know that your mom stays here? It was the whole community of the District 6, it was a norm.
That people will leave on the street.
That we knew each other, that, oh, you stayed at Roger Street, you stayed in Gimpy Street. And there was some that made it to get a place from government, and there was some that didn't.
So it was a norm to...
So there was always a walkabout because we had to deal with the situation and find our own homes.
Because for me, can I say this, especially I think for even a lot of people probably who even watch the channel, it's that thing of... You don't really understand the stories about about street kids and how they end up there and all those things. So and the way you even like speak about it in your book, for you it was like a norm. It was like a thing of, no, I'm gonna sleep under the bridge.
Yeah. Because we saw what the apartheid government did. It was literally no one's colored fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my dad's fault. It wasn't my community leader's fault. It was these people that kicked us out, and we would sit literally sometimes there and smoke our tennis and watch these big machines, crash down the buildings. And we'd be like looking at them thinking, oh wow. And we'd wait because we would want to go to the houses and sort of get some stuff to carry to go to the bridge. So it was literally us seeing our history, our heritage, our homes, our family scattered in front of us, and we're like, oh, we're the outcast of this new apartheid. And that's why even my book I share with you, I'm like, oh yeah, we went through the struggle of activism. We were there when people were screaming freedom 1994 because we were street kids, so we had the opportunity to pickpocket people. And it's always in my speeches, governmental speeches, I always wonder when I say to them, I wonder where is your IDs, because we stole quite a lot of Donpas while they were screaming freedom. So we don't know if they are documented. We were the kids that the Madiba requested every orphan child should come to his first birthday at Goldberg City. Social workers and whatever structure came out to collect kids on the streets were there, and they came to fetch us under the bridge. And it shocks me when, I'm happy to say as a survivor today, it's very proudly to say that the Western Cape have less street kids on the street now compared to when I was on it, which is in the 90s, in 94, 98, 99 to 2000. So it's a good report that I would like to say, but it's also one of those things that they don't want us to discuss, but there was no need for it if you guys did not take my family. And it's the same thing I ask when I say there was, for me being trafficked, if only I still had my family home. And I always ask this question now, what would have happened if that wouldn't have happened? Like, who would I be today?
Okay, let's think about your mother and your experience of taking the train to Khayelitsha, and you get to your mother and your mother doesn't claim you.
She wasn't happy because she was the Makoti. If we know our culture communities, especially our communities that we still have today, like Khayelitsha, communities were developed, we were all together. So she was a Makoti, and being a Makoti is to the procedure of getting married is a good thing when you don't have a kid outside. So she got all her Makoti benefits because she told the guy that I don't have a kid. So when I stepped at the door with the checkers in my hand, and like she knew who I was, but at the same time she was like, okay, this is just one of my relatives' kids. And then she's surprised that she saw me. So immediately she went into a mode of being irritated. And because the husband she's married with, he was working for transit, so he used to travel quite a lot out. And it was one of those family moments that I came to break, and it's why am I there?
And it was going great for her, probably.
Yes.
Because you even speak about how it wasn't your first time trying to get there. You had taken a train there and came back with the train. Why were you?
The first time it was, she literally, gave me money and was like, okay, come back tomorrow. And also it was the first encounter of rape that happened to me, and then it was probably a feeling that I really know that I marked to say, okay, you are cursed, because when I got raped and I came back to the house and she saw the skirt in my hand and with blood, the first thing she just did was slap me and beat me because I didn't bring water back, and it was late in the evening. And it was like, oh, so now you're all cheeky, you're grown up, you're coming in the house late. And it was just a beating that I got. And, the following day I just left. But I kept on coming back because also she was drinking quite a lot, and there were things that I was seeing happening in the house. Like I saw her get beaten up by the guys so many times because, our South African men went through the most when it comes to work related in the country. And being working hours long, you come back, they're tired, they're depressed, there's demands. So he was one of those men that just beats, always beating. And so I used to see that, and I would leave and she would take it out on me. So it was that back and forth moment.
So you were the last one to receive?
All the time.
But now you are 9. Because for me, again, that's why I keep like the thought of you saying you had a childhood is just like something that is foreign, because you're 9 years old and you're already a street kid.
Yeah.
You've been raped and you're already now trying to help your mother out with trying to be there for her.
It was, again, as my story, my cat died, Ginger. And that was the first ever moment of pain. and immediately after it was my granny, immediately after my granddad.
just-
So it was something that always became a norm. And you know, when people trying to find so many times in my life of the times and the dates and the stuff, I'm like, go ahead, go to the schools and find out when I was in school and why was I not in school. And you know, when you look at the time schedule of whatever happened from my family being separated was so fast. It was so quick, because by the time I was 10, I was like done with them. It was like, okay, now I'm just staying under the bridge. Now I'm going to learn how to be a 26. Now I'm going to learn how to sell drugs and rob. And now I'm going to back and forth with staying in the shelter, which is Onsbeek, which was extremely first-hand street kids come in every day. So it was like me saying, you know what, Chris, it is what it is. Your home is not there, so there's no way where the family can come together and stay. So we all have moved, so move on and learn how to survive.
So can you like share a little bit to us about your life living on the street? What was the first encounter with the drug, and what was that drug, and like how did you take it?
My first being introduced to the street was when I was in the shelter for adults, and then they had to bath, and I just followed them, because you know, adult shelters in the morning you need to leave, and you need to take space because they need to clean the shelter to let you guys come back again. So when they leave the shelter, I followed them, and most of them went under the bridge. So then I found that community. And there was adults, there was kids, there was dogs, there was families. And then that happened. Then I got used to things where people were drinking a lot, and then young kids were taking glue. So with glue, I think I smoked glue after smoking a button. And a button was a drug of smoking weed and a tablet in it. And then I got used to glue immediately. I smoked that.
How old were you?
Then I was 10. And I just did it because everybody did it, and we were all sitting around. Because you're going to be questioned of why you're there. You know, so you're not doing our activities, what's going on. And when I got high, I just sat there, and there was so many moments came through like, okay, my dad is coming to fetch me, so I need not to be dirty. And we'd never come. And then the young kids started to walk to the shelter, and that's how I got to know Onsbeek, and that's how I started to enter in Onsbeek. And the life in Onsbeek was, some girls were coming from rape, some girls were coming from the streets, some girls were just running away from home. And our space was really, really small. We had like 6 beds, but we shared a lot. Sometimes there were fights where, you know, the girls from the streets would sort of rape the innocent ones. I was sort of part of that too. Sometimes would steal their toiletries also and beat them up.
So there'll be like girls who ran away from home, and they would have like the proper stuff, like clean clothes and all those things.
And then we as street kids would come also and stay 2 or 3 days, and then when we do stay, we sort of hurt them. And then that was the life until, but then I started to sort of try every now and then to stay in the shelter for more than 3 or 4 months. And if you do, you start to go to school. So my year of, when I was 12, I went to Jan van Riebeeck Primary. And in Jan van Riebeeck Primary, I was in a class of, there was nothing wrong with me, but that was the only option I could get. But apparently the class I was in, it was international kids coming into the country, and for them to learn our curriculums from how to spell their name in English. And that made me angry, so I beat them up. So I was a school bully, sorry. I hated that I was a school bully, even though today I advocate a lot in schools and saying bullying is wrong. But I would sit in this class, and then there'll be a Chinese kid, and there'll be a Jewish kid. And here I am, and they're being taught ABC. And I'm 12, and I'm thinking, but I was in step B and step B. So why am I
I've done this before.
And it's like, okay, Grizelda, you're from a shelter, so your benefits as a black child, it's this, the school and education. So those kids are like, if you don't give me a lunch,
That's it.
And they were international kids, so it was really, really weird. You know, I still remember the one boy that was sitting next to me in the desk. He was Japanese, and his name was Hiro. You know, school desk was you shared it. He didn't have a choice.
And it's those days.
And I sort of tortured him quite a lot. Like, you do his schoolwork, and I'll take it, and then he has to do mine, because I didn't find a reason of why I must do ABC.
And how long did you stay in school? Because
I actually stayed in school because I played netball as part of the netball squad. You know what? That's why I'm describing the class, because the social worker and the house school teacher, housemaid could still go to school and say, can we just keep her? We know she missed out 3 days because she was on the street, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I was in that class, because they knew I was rebellious and I wasn't going to get. So I did that for at least 2 years, back and forth, in and out. And then sometimes I'd do netball because I had a crush on a guy. He was the head boy. And funny enough...
This was primary school?
Yes, primary school. And you know, school had like a dance, and he actually danced with me. So those were my highlights, and I called him Freckles. So I did have a good school time at these
places.
Yeah.
This is not
exactly places. And did I learn anything from it? My teacher was very, very nice. But you know what? School day would be school time. But the minute I get to the shelter, I go back to be the 26 gangster cheese street kid. I want my tennis thingy, and because our environment just smelled like it. Smelled like drugs and stuff.
And everything. So now, you meet, was it Untombi, right?
Yeah.
Because okay, so I just want to like track until the point where you guys meet. So and you even speak about how we were just roaming around like Long Street, and I'm like, well, it was even thinking about it, like I'm like Long Street, speaking about how we would go around there and pickpocket tourists and people that would be coming there. So you meet Untombi. How do you meet Untombi, and like how long was it between the time you guys meet until the time he convinces you that you need to go to Joburg?
I met Ndombi in between my times of school and streets. So people always have this image of I was dirty when she met me. No, because I still had access to be in the shelter.
Oh, okay.
So there were times where actually I did look like a girl, pretty girl that comes from school. And I went to an Afrikaans school, so you learn a sort of tone to a language that makes you sound like a black, intelligent kid. And Ntombi was, studying also
at the school.
No, not at the school, but in around Cape Town.
Oh,
sorry, I cannot reveal because we still want to kill her.
Oh, okay.
It's called for forgiveness journey. We're allowed to say that as survivors. Trust you me.
Okay. Was she the same age as you guys?
She was 19.
And you were?
I was, I don't know, I was like 15 to the 16.
Okay.
But body structures, African black child looks, body structure doesn't matter.
Yeah, you look very
They try to call us obese, and I'm like, no, that's a lie. If you go back to South Department, we're actually born like that. There's nothing obese to our genes as black people in Africa. But anyway, our body structure was the same, and we were friends. And because the schools were the same, and if you know Cape Town schools coming down from the gardens, Long Street, Loop Streets, and if you look at the city from that perspective, you'll see kids walking from the Zonnebloem to Jan van Riebeeck to Cape Town High to there's another school, and then they would like to walk all down to the city.
Oh, and that how
so that mingle of every day happened, and that's how I met. And we were taking this walk down the road to the parade, and I used to go to the parade all the time after coming from school. Okay. And that's how she learned that I was a street kid, and that's how I learned that she was a cheese girl.
and now, first of all, what did she say that convinced you to go to Joburg? Because I thought she lived in Joburg, right?
No, she was living here, and she was doing school here, and that's how we met. And when we met, we were in our uniforms, and it's like, okay, I stay there and I stay here. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a family, I stay in the street and at the shelter. And she's like, oh, okay, maybe we could meet up sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, and that's how the relationship starts. So there will be times where she is in town and she'll come in at the shelter and call me, and I'll come out. And then we met, and then it became so regular that she would spend time with me under the bridge. Because it would be time for me coming out of the shelter, I'll go straight to my peeps. And my peeps are under the bridge. And she would walk with me. And that's where I figured the time of her smoking drugs too. And we're like, oh, okay.
You also do it. But did she seem like it was the first time? Or?
No, that's what I'm saying. She continued to walk with me until under the bridge. And that's how it became a regular. And that's how I found out.
Okay. So what I'm asking, because I'm trying to figure out this human, right? Whether they knew what they were doing, was it a mistake and all that. That's what
no, she was sort of taking drugs at that point, because we became closer and closer because she could get drugs from us. Because we were under the bridge with people.
And then how did she convince you to go to Joburg?
She didn't convince me. I'm the one that sort of said, there's so much happening in Cape Town, we're getting kicked out of the shelter. And she's gonna move to UJ, and she was like, she's gonna stay in her own apartment and everything. And I was like, oh wow, that is so cool, you know. Can I come through? And she's like, yeah, sure, find your way through. And then she left like 6 months before the time I went, because I still had to get my own money to travel on my own. So I traveled myself. Usually human trafficking is transportation, the traffickers. So with me, I transported myself there. Yes. The trafficking part is being captured and tortured and locked up against, and that's what people don't understand with exit.
So now,
so she went and I just asked her, like, listen, I'm gonna get kicked out. Leah has passed on. Can I come and stay with her, because she's gonna have an apartment in a city that I've never been, and we know each other so well, and I promised that I won't take drugs anymore, and maybe we'll, find a job for myself. And it was, it was a conversation that wasn't first. We've had, and that's why she was a friend. It wasn't a conversation of first. We've had the drug addict conversations. Yeah, I had drugs too in my system, but mine was survival. So we did speak about her going before time.
So now she goes to Joburg, and where do you get the money? Because I mean, like currently it's like what, 1,000 rand to go to Joburg.
Back then it was like what, one rand, 12 rand or something for third class. No, it was 100 and something. I don't know. I had to hide from some of the street kids and our gang leaders, because you're at 26, you don't do sexual things for money. You rob people. And that was my relationship with her also. We would give her drugs, and then she would tell us at her friends' parties which cars will be open so we can get radios. So we'd steal radio calls from Camps Bay. So if she tells us, I'm going to be in Camps with my friends, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so can you try one of your friends' cars not to be locked? Because back then car radios was the it.
You could just take them off.
And that was it. So it was, when she left, I hid from the 26th, and then I started to stand at the robots in the middle of the night and sort of hide so I can give sexual pleasures to men, because older men were always approaching us for privileges. And some of them were, your typical professors, because we used to stand very upper town in the middle of the night.
What was it your first time? What gave you the idea to do it?
There were kids that used to do that.
Oh, okay.
Like at night, when we didn't make a lot of money on the robots, or we didn't make a lot of money off anything we stole, and we're hungry. So at some point we'd just go to the midnight robots and do. And that's how I got my ticket money, and I traveled with the train and got.
And that was part one. I definitely hope you guys enjoyed it, because I definitely enjoyed editing it and just conducting the whole interview. She's just an amazing woman. I mean, isn't that? I find it mind-boggling. Anyway, In part 2, she tells us more about how she found herself in Joburg and as a prostitute and her journey in the whole industry and how she ended up getting herself out of it. And the work that she's currently doing as an activist, and the and that was part 1. I definitely hope you guys enjoyed it. In part 2, she tells us more. And that was part 1. I definitely hope you guys enjoyed it because I enjoyed editing it and even just conducting it. Isn't she an amazing woman? I mean, how can you go through? For me, it's just mind-boggling and it's crazy. But what I love about this story is that it doesn't end like this. In part 2, she tells us more about how she found herself in Joburg and she found herself as a prostitute in the City of Gold, how her journey was in the industry and how she ended up getting herself out of the industry. The work that she's currently doing as an activist and what is it that she's doing or she wants to do with her life going forward. And as I said, guys, you do not want to miss part 2 because this is an inspirational story. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask Grizelda Grootboom or anything, you can write them down in the comment below. Or anything that you want to say, you can write them down in the comment below. If there's anything that is personal that you don't want to write to the public, I'll link all her social media platforms in the description below. You can also just DM me and then I'll try to forward everything to her because I have her number. Other than that, guys, please do not forget to subscribe, press the bell to get notifications. You guys are awesome. If you watched until this part, literally the end, you are awesome. Damn it, my goodness, you are awesome.